Hi, I'm Rabbi Aaron Bergman, and I want to share with you one of my favorite psalms, a psalm that has a great deal of meaning to me all the time. It's a psalm we say during the entire high holiday season from the month of Elul, the month before Rosh Hashanah, all the way through Sukkot. And it is very powerful. It deals with issues of fear, of anxiety, of anger, of frustration, but how to face everything with courage and with light and with optimism. So I'm going to share the teaching itself. I'll read the verses and I'll add some thoughts to it. But I really just encourage you to read Psalm 27 yourself on a daily basis. It really resonates. And if not daily, then weekly. And if not that much, just take a look at it once and see what resonates for you. I think it can be extremely helpful and extremely comforting. LeDavid Adonai ori v'ishi mimi ira. Adonai ma'oz chayai mimi efchad. The Lord is my light and my help. Who shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Who shall I dread? Now, what I find very powerful here is that the word fear and the word dread of yirah and pachad are actually two different things. Yirah, fear, is things you should really be afraid of. There are things in life that are dangerous, there are things in life that we should avoid, which are not good for us or maybe not good for others. And so there is a healthy sense of fear, which means just pay attention, try to be as safe as you possibly can in the world. And often these sort of things are manageable. Pachad is a sense of dread, where things are actually kind of okay, but we have this fear of there not being okay, or we don't understand what's out there and we become afraid. So this psalm is telling us that God's light, which is the light of truth, the light of Torah, the light of compassion and courage, that is something that can help us deal with this sense of dread. A lot of us are living with anxiety now. A lot of us are living with fear. We don't know what's going to be happening. We have hopes, and then there seem to be setbacks to the hopes. There's a lot of things that we hear that just terrify us and maybe even more make us afraid for our loved ones and their safety and security. That's why we say this during not just a time of pandemic, but a time of evaluation of our lives as we head to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is are we living by our fears or are we living by our values? And that's why this psalm really begins with King David saying is, there is light in the world, and that light can help us deal with the darkness, can help us deal with a lot of fear. The next verse, B'karov alai mereim la'achol episari tzarai v'oivai li hema chashlu v'nafalu. When evil people try to devour me, when they do bad things to me or wish me harm or think harmful things for me or say terrible things, they will eventually stumble and fall. Now, what I find powerful here is that it's not that we are going to cause them to stumble and fall or that we should be getting into fights with them, but rather their own actions will eventually lead to their own downfall. The more evil you do toward others, the more likely it is that you are going to wind up ruining your own life, and unfortunately sometimes ruining the lives of those near you as well. So this is a continuation from the first verse, is that if we try to live with courage and a sense of trying to do the right thing, that even if there are people who are very open in how much they disagree with us, or they take positions which are harmful, or they say things which are hurtful, eventually they are the ones who are going to stumble and fall. Im tachana alai machana lo yira libi, im takum alai milchama bezot ani voteach. Should an army encamp around me, no fear will arise within me, because I have a sense of confidence that this army camping around us could just be society that feels like it can have control over us, or that should have a say in our lives, or that we need to give in to things that are dangerous or harmful. And this says that no, that within our hearts we can find the strength to have confidence, to keep going and to do the right thing. Then King David says, Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh, shivti bevet Adonai kol yemei chayai, lachazot b'noam Adonai ulvaker behechalo. There is only one thing I ask of the Lord, only one thing I seek, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty and the splendor, and to be able to visit in his palace. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that King David is not the one who built the Holy Temple. What I think he is talking about here is transforming the entire world into a house of the Lord, that the entire world will be a place of freedom and safety, and that it becomes a kind of palace for everyone, because the specific place has not been built. I think he has a vision that wants to spend all the days of his life trying to create the entire world as a place of safety and security. Ki yitzpaneni b'suko b'yom ra'ah yastireni b'seter ohala b'tzur yeromemeni. That God will shelter me in a sukkah on a day of evil, or a very bad day. This word for shelter, I think, is very powerful, because we talk about a sukkah as with the holiday of Sukkot coming up, as a structure that is incomplete, a structure that has maybe 2.5 walls, that doesn't have a complete roof. It's a roof that you can see through, but also means the rain can get through as well. But what I think King David is saying here is that if you have a certain amount of connection to community, if you have a connection to your faith, a connection to your sense of self, that all that becomes the sukkah. That it's not just the physical structure that we're in, but that it is an emotional sense of security. When we look at the world and try to do good things in the world, even if it doesn't always work out, that's like being in the sukkah. That's like being in the protection of God. Again, it doesn't necessarily save us from physical harm, and I don't want to say that just because we pray and do the right thing that our lives will work out perfectly and everything will be safe, but rather we will have a sense of confidence that we are living meaningful lives. V'ata yerum roshi al oivai savivoti savivotai v'azbacha v'alo zivchei trua ashira v'azamra ladonai. I will hold my head high over my enemies. I sacrifice in God's tent with shouts of joy, singing and chanting a hymn to the Lord. So there aren't actual sacrifices here that King David is going to be offering, because the temple isn't there. What I think he is talking about is that when people do the wrong thing, that we still keep our heads held high, and that we take the high road on things, that we don't lower ourselves to our enemies. Instead, that we try to find ways to create a song out of our lives, meaning that the sacrifice here might be sacrificing some of our wealth, maybe some of our time, maybe it's sacrificing some of the ideas that we held on to, which are really outdated and outmoded, and finding a way to really open ourselves up to what is actually true, what actually needs to be done, and not just because we've had a number of beliefs that we have held on to or that other people have held on to, but that we evaluate where we are in our lives and that we look at the whole picture. This is what it means to hold your head up. When you hold your head up, you can see things the way they really are and not just the way you think they are. And that even if it's not the way we would like it to be, we can still do beautiful things within that world. And that is what gives us joy and happiness. Shema Adonai koli ekra v'chaneni v'aneni. Hear, O Lord, when I cry out, have mercy, show kindness, and answer to me. Now, in this verse, I think what's powerful is that just calling out with our own words, our own thoughts, is a form of prayer. As we head into the high holidays, there's a lot of words in the Machzor. We think we need to say every word. But instead, this is just our own voice, our own ideas, our own prayers, our own lives. That's what God really wants to hear from us. L'cha amar libi bakshu panai et panacha Adonai avakesh. In your behalf, my heart says, seek my face. O Lord, I seek your face. We're just trying to make a connection here with our prayers. We're not trying to solve everything. Sometimes we're worried, are we asking for the right thing? Are we saying the right thing the right way? It doesn't matter. Be yourself. Just try to have a connection based on who you truly are. It's allowing God to see who we are. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said the purpose of prayer wasn't to let God know who we are, it's to let ourselves know who we really are, and to make ourselves open to our true selves, and to make ourselves open to others. Al taster panacha mimeni al tat ba'af avdacha ezrati hayiti al tichena va'al tazvenu Elohai Ishi. Do not hide your face from me. And one of the things to think about is that all of humanity is a face of God, that we have to see God's face in other people and to not turn aside from them, and that they shouldn't turn aside from us. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel again said that the real name of God was human beings. We are God's representatives on earth. We are God's faces on earth, and we cannot forsake or abandon each other. We're asking God not to abandon us, but it has to begin with our not abandoning all of God's creation. And this includes people you like, it includes people you don't know, it includes people maybe you don't like. Even they are created in God's image. It doesn't mean that everything is okay that they do, or that you have to connect with every person, but it's an awareness that each person is a face of God, and that there is a potential for a transformative relationship. Again, not in every cases. There are situations that are beyond our abilities to fix, but as a general idea, when we see another person, do we see the face of God, or do we just sort of look away? Ki avi v'imi azavuni va'adonai ya'asfeni, though my mother and father abandoned me. The phrase here is really that God will gather me back together again. God will put the pieces together. And there are different ways here of feeling abandoned. It could be the death of a parent, though they, obviously they haven't abandoned you through death on purpose, but it feels like a loss. It feels sometimes like an abandonment. But parents abandon in other ways too, maybe through harmful behaviors, maybe through neglect, or maybe through misunderstanding. I find this so meaningful, the word ya'asfeni, that no matter what happens, God can put us back together again. In the Talmud, it says that every human being has three partners in creation. There's the mother, the father, and God. And that the three together will help the person stay together. And by the way, in Jewish tradition, the parents are the ones who raise the child, not just the biological parents. So I think that's very important, that whoever is raising the child is considered to be the parent of the child. This next verse has a word which I think is really powerful for what we're going through now. It says, Horeini Adonai darkacha uncheni b'orach mishor lam'an shorarai. Horeini is to show me your way, O Lord. Lead me on a level path. Keep me grounded. But the word Horeini has three different meanings. It's the word Torah, which is the teachings of God and our people. It's the word Horim, which is parents, and the word Morah or Moreh, which is teacher. And that all these different aspects are necessary for us, that we need to have parents who guide us, teachers who guide us, and the wisdom of God and our people that guide us. And sometimes in different parts of our lives, we need one aspect more than others, but that this is a partnership, that whoever is teaching, there is a level of holiness, whether as a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a friend, a classroom teacher, just someone we meet who maybe was helpful to us. each of these is an opportunity for us to learn to figure out what the right way is in our lives. So they can only show us or help us, but it's up to us if we're going to follow a good path. Al titneni benefesh tsarai ki chamu vi ede sheker v'ifeach Hamas. Do not subject me to the will of my foes, for all false witnesses and unjust accusers have appeared against me. What I think this means is, please also don't put within me the spirit of my enemy. Do not make me like them. There are so many hateful people out there, and often I'm seeing people trying to counter the hate with more hate, and that never works. Once you become as hateful as the person you are angry at, they win. You have become like them. The idea here is, again, to keep our head up, to try to have strength, to try to have courage, and not fall to the level of the people who are doing terrible things. Lule ha'amanti lirot betuv Adonai be'eretz chayim. Had I not the assurance that I would enjoy the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And then this is really an ellipse. That's why you see the ... It's not a complete sentence. It's the person, is King David here, is so grateful to see the good in the world as it is, even when so many bad things are happening. During this very, very difficult year, during this year of uncertainty, this feeling of everything in our lives being upside down and having changed, this is a reminder that there is still goodness in the world. There's still the capacity for goodness within us, that we can do good things for other people, we can do good things for ourselves, we can find beauty and we can find meaning. There are things that are really scary. There are things that are really painful. There are things that are destructive. But within that, there is also beauty and there is good. We all know about the bad. What the world needs is for us to point out the good as well. And it concludes, Kaveh el Adonai chazak v'yametz libecha v'kaveh el Adonai. It says, have hope looking toward God, strengthen your heart, and remember to find courage. It doesn't say that you just hope in God, but that you express your hope towards things that are worthy of God. And when it says chazak v'yametz libecha, means to be of strong heart, but to not harden your heart. It means here to have courage to do the right thing, but to not block yourself off from the difficulties of the world or the difficulties of other people. And that's really why I believe we say this psalm during the month of Elul, before Rosh Hashanah, and all the way through Sukkot. It's a reminder that when life is fragile, when life is difficult, when things are very hard to face, there is always courage, there is always light, there is always a possibility of meaning and joy if we only look for it together.